Welcome to the Shudder. I had a request from Doe Harris who wanted some ghost stories, so I've put together some ghost stories for today. You know, not everybody believes that there are real ghost stories. Some people are confident that we as a species have already determined what is possible and what isn't, that there is an absolute separation between the realms of the living and the dead. On the other hand, most people also have had or know someone who has had an experience that they can't fully explain. The list of these kinds of accounts across history is staggering. Though there certainly isn't much scientific proof to back them up, these accounts could just be spooky stories and nothing more. I believe otherwise. I know what I've heard from my own grandmother, and when I was much younger, what I've experienced myself. This first account is the story of Miss Kate Morgan. It was 1892, and Kate Morgan was a grown and capable 24-year-old woman. According to the story, she checked in the Hotel del Coronado on Thanksgiving Day. Some say she still hasn't checked out. Employees recalled that Morgan said she was waiting for a gentleman to join her. After 5 days as a guest, the story goes, nobody showed, and Morgan shot herself. With nothing found at the scene to identify her, police telegraphed her description to authorities around the country. The media dubbed her the beautiful stranger for her description, and it was soon discovered she had an estranged husband. Her gentleman caller, it was presumed, was a lover. Morgan was also presumed pregnant when she killed herself. Before her suicide, Morgan worked as a household caretaker in an affluent suburb of Los Angeles. During her travel to the hotel, onlookers saw her verbally spar with an unidentified male. He got off the train mid-route and abandoned her, leaving Morgan melancholy upon her arrival. Though unclear whether this figure was her husband or not, Morgan sorrowfully wandered into town and procured a pistol. According to many visitors, there is no shortage of people who've reported paranormal activity in the hotel. Guests have experienced flickering lights, a rogue television, and a change in temperature that appears out of nowhere and vanishes just as inexplicably. Doors have opened and shut on their own. Footsteps and voices have been heard, with no one being seen. Because human curiosity knows no bounds, Morgan's room has been the most requested room of them all at the hotel. Even a group of independent paranormal researchers stayed there to document the so-called hauntings. The team employed infrared cameras, night vision goggles, radiation sensors, indicators for toxic chemicals, microwave imaging systems, and high-frequency sound detectors. Though Morgan stayed in room 3327, formerly 302, her apparition has appeared elsewhere. There have been several sightings in room 3519, formerly 502, and intended for maids. For instance, guests have reported objects moving independently. Stranger still, the hotel owner's mistress also killed herself at the resort after discovering she was pregnant. Of course, countless guests had already reported seeing her, both in the hallways and by the beach. The hotel gift shop, too, has seen unexplained phenomena, with items flying off shelves and often landing right side up. Ultimately, it's unclear what exactly is going on at that hotel. An elaborate ruse by management, buyer's remorse on behalf of guests, or possibly real paranormal activity in plain sight. A few months ago, my friend's cousin, a single mother, bought a new cell phone. After a long day of work, she came home, placed her phone on the counter, and went to watch TV. Her son came in to ask her if he could play with her new cell phone. She told him not to call anyone or mess with text messaging, and he agreed. Around 11:30, she was drowsy, so she decided to tuck her son in and go to bed. She walked to his room and saw that he wasn't there. She then ran over to her room to find him sleeping on her bed with the phone in his hand. Relieved, she picked up the phone and inspected it. Browsing through, she noticed only minor changes such as new background and banner, etc. But then she opened up her saved pictures. She began deleting the pictures he had taken until only one picture remained. When she first saw it, She was in disbelief. It was her son sleeping on her bed, but the picture was taken by someone else. But no one else was in the house. I had been on the phone with my then boyfriend, and he said something that made me think he was not the person that I thought he was. And I remember telling him that if he knew anything about me, he'd know exactly where I was going. I hung up the phone, got in my car, and drove to the park. The sun was kind of down below the tree line, but it wasn't dark yet when I pulled into the parking lot. There were 2 cars pulled side by side and talking to each other. When I got out, the guy in the truck just stared at me, like when someone just looks at you like they're looking through you, as if you don't exist. I thought, well, this is weird. It's late, and no one's ever here. I thought, whatever, okay, they're leaving anyway. I don't care, I have my own problems. I only took my keys with me because I didn't want a big purse banging around. I headed across the field, which you have to cross to get to the woods because there's no trail. I was taking my time and calming down. Then I realized it got real quiet. I didn't hear the birds and squirrels anymore. I just heard something big moving through the woods. I thought to myself, maybe it's a dog. And then I heard the voices. The first voice was a man's voice, and it said, "I know I saw her go this way. She couldn't have gotten that far." Then the second voice comes, and it's quieter, and it says, "Shh, she'll hear you." Okay, so there are 2 men in the woods, and they're looking for something, obviously. I kept thinking it must be their dog. They must have lost their dog. And then I thought they wouldn't try to sneak up on their dog. I stood there, frozen. I could hear them getting closer to me. I don't know how long I stood there waiting for them to get to me, but I was completely frozen. And then I heard the other voice. It was distorted, like if you heard someone talking through a closed door, or talking underwater. I could understand what they were saying, but the voice wasn't right. It wasn't in my head because it had volume and a pitch that my thoughts definitely don't do. I could almost feel where it was coming from. It was behind me and a little above, like it was taller than me. It just said, "Go to the river now." I don't know if I was more scared of the fact that there's some disembodied voice talking to me, or there are 2 men in the woods looking for me. I listened to the voice because I didn't really have other options. I took off toward the river. I made a ton of noise because I was just going as fast as I could, and the voice came back and said no, quietly. I got to the river and jumped down the embankment. I squished myself against it, squeezing down into the smallest, tightest ball I could. The voice kept telling me to stay. I just sat there, hoping whoever was in the woods was going to leave, and that I wasn't having some kind of breakdown. I kept hearing them moving through the woods, and I could tell they had split up. As I sat there, the voice just kept telling me to stay and quiet, over and over again, like it was trying to comfort me. I could hear what sounded like someone right above me, and if I leaned out, they could see me. But I had to look. I just tilted my head up a tiny bit, and I could see the tips of these construction boots hanging over the edge, and I could see hanging next to them this dirty old rope just swinging there next to their foot. I was so scared, I just tried not to breathe. It felt like hours, but I know it couldn't have been that long. Even the voice was completely silent. There was nothing but me hearing this man breathing. After he walked away, the voice kept telling me to wait, so I waited. Finally, the voice said, "Go, now, to the field. Go now." It was screaming at me so loud, so I ran through the woods and just got out of the field, far, far from the cars and street. It was getting dark, and I could see the parking lot, but it was so far away. I'm running, and I start hearing footsteps running behind me. At first, they were far away, but they're so much faster than I am, barreling after me. I looked all around, but there was nothing there. I fully expected to see at least one of the men there, but there was no one. The only thing I could think is that the footsteps must have belonged to the voice. And I hear it again screaming at the top of its lungs that I need to run right now. The footsteps come back, and they're in pace with me, running next to me through the field. I had 1,000 crazy thoughts because none of this made any sense. Finally, I get to my car, and I see both the cars were parked in different places with nobody in them. I refused to look behind me. If there hadn't been a voice, I would probably be a missing persons case. Whoever or whatever it was got me out of there. I wish I had stopped for a second just to say thank you. Well, I hope you enjoyed those as much as I did. I want to thank Doe Harris for the request, and thank you all for listening. Give it a like and a share, and if you subscribe, make sure you hit that notification bell so you can join me here next time for the Shudder.